When you think of Germany, you probably think of something like this. Or this.
Schmetterling!
Or even worse, this.
Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie...
But what no one tells you is that living here, or even just learning the German language, will change you. It changes the way you think, the way you feel about your past and your future. This happened to me, and in this video, I want to share some of the biggest mindset shifts that might happen to you as well. The very first one I want to share with you today is about getting old and how differently it is perceived in Germany comparing to Ukraine. One of the most striking differences I noticed when I moved to Germany is the way elderly people live their lives. When I was growing up in Ukraine, the typical retirement lifestyle looked something like this. But in Germany, it's a completely different story. Here in Germany, I constantly meet 60, 70 or even 80-year-old women who are starting belly dancing classes, going to parties, finding new boyfriends, and are planning their new adventures. Their lifestyle seems so much more exciting to me than the one that I'm used to see elderly people have back in Ukraine. And this isn't just my personal observation, it's actually backed by research. A study conducted in Germany found that women aged 65 and older report high levels of life satisfaction, especially comparing to populations where aging is often associated with decline in well-being. Now, you might think this is probably because they can afford a fancy and interesting lifestyle, but that is not true. In fact, Germany has a huge problem with its retirement system. The average pension in Germany is about 1,200 euros a month, but many retirees get much less than that, something about 800 euros a month. This amount is not even enough to cover the budget of a student in Germany. Let me give you a specific example here. I have a neighbor who is almost 70, he has health issues, and his retirement money is just 800 euros a month, which is really not a lot considering the cost of living here in Munich. But just a few days ago, he gave up the apartment that he was renting and moved to Mallorca to look for some new adventures. And this is something I could never imagine a Ukrainian person his age doing. And that's the biggest difference I've noticed. So the lifestyle that elderly people in Germany have is not about financial well-being, it's about mindset. It's about prioritizing experiences, relationships, and things that make you happy. And how do retirees live in your country? How would you like to spend your retirement? Let me know in the comments below and let's continue. The second mindset shift has to do with the guy that you saw in the beginning of this video. Adolf Hitler is history, but in many ways today's Germany has been shaped by its willingness to confront that history directly. So living here changed my view on what political awareness is and what it should look like. And I believe this is something we should all learn from Germany. But let me explain first. A few years ago, I did an internship at a German school. On my very first day, I walked into a classroom that seemed very chaotic to me. During the class, kids were being loud and even interrupted the teacher. It was so strange to me comparing to the school experiences that I had back in Ukraine, so I asked one of the teachers about it. And she said that this approach to education, where kids have much more freedom, is actually intentional. After the Second World War, Germany didn't just rebuild its economy, it redesigned the way young people are taught, especially when it comes to power, critical thinking, and personal responsibility. In Germany, schools don't teach kids how to follow the rules blindly. They teach them to form their own opinions and to see things from different perspectives. And the goal of all this is to raise a generation that cannot be as easily indoctrinated or brainwashed, which probably leads to more autonomy in the classroom. Since 1976, Germany has followed a new education framework called Beutelsbach Consensus. It is based on three main principles. Überwältigungsverbot, so no overwhelming. Teachers are not allowed to manipulate the students or to push their own political opinions. Kontroversitätsgebot, controversy principle, meaning that if a political topic is controversial in the society, It also has to be presented controversially in the classroom, which means no simplified answers. Students have to hear multiple sides of an argument. And Schülerorientierung, which basically means putting the students in the center. Education has to empower students to recognize their own interests and to think critically. Besides that, political education is everywhere here. Almost every political party has youth wings for teenagers, like Junge Union for CDU. There are multiple state-funded institutions dedicated to political education, like, for example, Bundeszentrale für politische Bildung. They create lots of free educational materials, and they even have a quiz called Wahl am Mat that helps you understand which political party fits your values best. By the way, if you are learning German, I can really recommend checking out their website. They cover many interesting societal topics. It's not just about politics. Like, for example, here they have an episode about being a virgin in different cultures. And of course, school kids learn the history of National Socialism in detail at school. This whole culture of remembers in Germany is something that fascinated me in the beginning, because if you look at the other side of the story, the Soviet regime was responsible for even more deaths than Hitler's. But unlike Germany, there is no similar culture of remembering in current Russia. Instead, the idea of the Great Victory has become one of the central parts of Russian national identity today. But even in Germany, not everyone is a fan of this self-reflective approach. For example, here's Björn Höcke, a prominent politician from the AfD party, Alternative für Deutschland. And some time ago, he made headlines for saying this.
Wir Deutschen, also unser Volk, sind das einzige Volk der Welt, das sich ein Denkmal der Schande in das Herz seiner Hauptstadt gepflanzt hat.
Basically, he said, we Germans are the only people in the world who have planted a monument of shame in the heart of their capital. He was talking about the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin. Germany has indeed made an incredible effort to confront this dark part of their history. So this statement didn't really land well. Let me know in the comments below, how do you feel about Germany's approach to confront its past? Is it similar to what you experienced in your country? And let's continue to the next one. The next mindset shift I wanted to share with you is about feminism. When I was growing up in Ukraine, the word feminist came with a lot of stereotypes. You know, something like a woman who hates men, burns bras for fun, and wakes up every morning thinking, how can I destroy the patriarchy today? But when I came to Germany, learning about feminism was promoted on institutional level. My employer here even gave me a training on it, even though it wasn't directly related to my position. So it was only in Germany that I learned what feminism is all about. It is equal rights for all genders, Gleichberechtigung. We are going to be learning some German words along the way. The freedom to make your own choices, Selbstbestimmung, ending discrimination, Ende von Diskriminierung, and ending sexism, Ende von Sexismus. So none of this actually sounds so dramatic, right? Like throwing bricks at men isn't actually a part of being feminist. And I think that the fact that I was getting paid to learn about feminism, even though it had nothing to do with my job directly, is really incredible. But even in this progressive country, the pay gap between men and women is at 18% for the same jobs as of 2024, which is actually one of the largest ones in the world next to the USA. Imagine working until Wednesday afternoon and not getting paid for it. It's not cool, right? Now, just for comparison, Germany's neighbor Luxembourg has one of the smallest pay gaps in the world, which is at 1.3%. So if you are a woman, commuting from Germany to Luxembourg for work doesn't sound like such a bad idea, does it? But feminism isn't just about numbers and workplace policies. One of the most surprising things that I learned in Germany is the way women sometimes see personal relationships and certain gestures. Honestly, I think you should be really careful with it. Once I was talking to a German colleague of mine. She is a woman in her late 20s, and we were talking about cultural differences in dating between Germany and Ukraine. I mentioned something that I thought was completely normal. In Ukraine, it's common for men to offer their seat on the bus to a woman or to give her a hand when she is getting off the bus or getting out of the car. But my colleague's reaction was very intense and emotional. She said she would never ever were accepted even from her boyfriend. Because for her it was about being seen as weak or incapable, whereas in Ukraine it's just considered a nice, gentlemanly gesture. And honestly, I'm still not sure if declining this gesture should be considered as a feministic move or not. One thing I understood though is that in Germany you need to be careful with things like this, especially if you are a guy interested in a German girl, because not everyone appreciates stuff like this. Let me know in the comments how is it in your country. If you are a guy, would you do it? And if you are a girl, would you like it to be done? So those were some of my mindset shifts that I've had since moving to Germany. Now I'm very curious to learn what insights or mindset shifts have you had after moving to Germany or after learning about German culture. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.